you you think about a lot of things when you're faced with death and you're in a situation like this. And there's a lot of difficult things to contemplate. A lot of things that could happen and that would really, really be painful and would really suck if they did happen. Things like, I'm not afraid of death. Like I've faced it enough times at this point, but it's the repercussions of it. It's like, I know just like the thought of leaving my wife behind and all the pain it would cause her. Like that is really difficult to think about. But sometimes it's the things you know will never happen, that could never happen, that are the hardest. Sometimes sometimes asking simple questions like, what if I never get to meet my kids? Like, yeah, okay, having kids, like I've seen other people with cancer who have families and who have to go through that process of saying goodbye to their children. And yeah, that sucks, but I don't know, maybe this is selfish of me, but it just feels even worse. The thought of possibly dying and never even get to meet them, never allowing them to exist. And that's just the thing. I keep picturing myself, ever since I came up with this analogy of, my situation being like crash landing in the desert and just being stranded and trying to get back to civilization and back to my wife and to survive. I keep picturing myself in the desert in different situations, and as I'm processing this and I'm thinking about, what if I never get to meet my children? I just kind of picture myself sitting in the desert all by myself, just crying and thinking, what if? And none of this affects how I feel inside, what I believe. I know that everything will be okay, and I'll be able to find my way out of that desert. I know I'll be able to get back to my wife. I know we'll be able to build a life together, but sometimes it gets overwhelming. It gets too intense just thinking about things like this. And sometimes it's just, you kind of need to surrender to it to kind of experience the pain and process it and kind of let it go, knowing that, yeah, it's probably going to come back at some point in the future. That's the thing. Like, at this point, I've been asked multiple times, like, are you afraid of death? And that's the thing. Like, I'm not. I'm afraid of what would happen if I died. Because I know that if that's what's meant to happen, if I'm meant to die, I mean, obviously I'm going to die. Everybody dies eventually. But I mean, if it's going to happen sooner than later, I know that my suffering will end when I'm dead. And it's what I leave behind. My wife, all the pain, sadness, and suffering it's going to cause her. Thoughts like, you know, I'll never get to meet my children, but even worse, like, my wife will never get to meet her children. And sometimes it's just like that, not pressure, but just that helplessness just gets too much for you to handle. And all you can do is just break down and cry and just experience it, hoping praying that you're wrong, that everything will be okay, that you will survive. And that one day you'll get to meet your kids, and your wife will get to meet them, and you'll get to be a happy family. And then, when your time does come, when you're old and wrinkled, and then they can be there around you, knowing that you led a long, happy, fulfilling life. Anyway, I know it's just part of the process. Some days are more painful than others. And I know the rest of the days can be good because whenever I go through things like this, I always feel better after, and I already sense it, like I'm starting to slowly feel better, but it's just difficult to have to go through this. But at the same time, this is exactly why I manifested this, why I am going through this, because I need to experience this in order to survive, in order to become the version of myself that can live to be old and have children. Yeah, it's all part of the process.